Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Greetings, people of Earth, good people of Earth and the known universe. You're listening to Golden State Media Concepts television podcast. This is your Captain Keith, and on deck we have Killing Eve. I am so excited to talk to you about that new series on BBC America, starring Sandra Oh, formerly of Grey's Anatomy and formerly of the hit movie Sideways. And some more of The Last OG, and you're going to be getting more of that throughout these podcasts. I'm finally able to start catching up on that show, starring Tracy Freeman and, Tracy Morgan. And there's a Kryptonian Twist as well. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys about that too. Killing Eve, more of The Last OG, and Kryptonian Twist. So we're going to savor Killing Eve and the Kryptonian Twist for later on in the podcast. So we'll get into The Last OG right now. So yes, Tracy Morgan, not Freeman. I did a story on him meeting Morgan Freeman, so got them all twisted in my head for a second. Yeah, so Tracy Morgan, starring in The Last OG, which stands for Original Gangster. It's a comedy. We've already spoken about this show. He plays an ex-con, spent 15 years in jail, gets out, and he finds out that New York and Brooklyn is not the same as it was when he first went in. And his girlfriend, the love of his life, was played by Tiffany Haddish. He finds out that she's a successful businesswoman who's married to this white man. And they have some twins. And Tracy Morgan's character, named Trey, believes that the twins, these fraternal twins, are his. So now, within the first episode, towards the end of the episode, he saw the kids. And he didn't get a chance to really talk to them, but he put two and two together. And then Shay, played by Tiffany Haddish, basically kind of avoided him and didn't want to talk about the fact that those were his kids. And that she's happy with her new husband and her family and her new life. So in this new episode, Trey realizes now that he needs to get a job. He wants to see his kids. So first of all, he calls Shay while she's having a meeting at her office, and she's speaking to people about her business and what some things she wants to do. And he FaceTimes her either he FaceTimed her with the iPhone, or he was just using Hangouts on the Android phone. I'm not quite sure what it was. I'm pretty sure it was probably FaceTime, because she hasn't been returning his phone calls. So he's like, what's going on? Why aren't you returning my calls? And he's like, look, I don't have time right now. I'm busy. I'm at work. And he's like, oh, you're at work? That's your office? And he's kind of loud and boisterous. And he's like, oh, wow, this is cool. Because why don't you introduce me to your colleagues? And he's like, when can I see my kids? And she's like, you're not going to see them. First of all, they need to have positive people in their life, people who are doing something, and you don't even have a job. You're an ex-con. So he's like, okay, well, hey, I'll get a job. I'm a chef. I'm great. I can do this. So the beginning of the episode shows Tracy Morgan. He's doing the voiceover, talking about how he's got these skills to cook. He also says some funny things about how times have changed, and you can no longer convince a girl that if you're having sex with her with your socks on, that it's special. Just little rude and crude things he says that are just funny. But what I like about Trey's character is that he's this funny, likable guy who feels like he's a man out of time. And he's trying to fit in. And what was cool about the very first episode when I watched it, or it might have been the second, I can't remember, was that right when he's about to just throw the towel in because nothing is as what it was when he first went in, His whole world has changed. He doesn't have any friends anymore. He's got one friend, and it's his best friend, who's dad's little brother. And the woman he loved moved on, but it was 15 years. Of course she was going to move on. And she's the one who told him don't go outside. And when he went outside, that's when he got arrested. So, but we already discussed that. So Trey's a man out of time. And, a lot of times on a serious note, like if you're an ex-convict, you got out of jail and you feel like you can't get anywhere, that no one wants to hire you because you're an ex-con, and you're trying to make things right. Sometimes these ex-cons might revert and go back to what they know, which is jail, by committing a crime or do something violating their parole. And it's just sad because, sometimes that's where they feel more comfortable or at home because no one's giving them a shot. So, look forward to our society being much more progressive and seeing people reintegrate into society properly, those ex-cons. But getting back to the last OG. So, like I said, Trey's a man, out of time. And just as he's about to, you get the feeling that like he's just like going to throw on the towel because nothing is what he thought it was going to be. He thought he had this plan that everything was going to be great, that he could pick up where he left off. He was being naive. But you can't blame him or fault him for that, because I guess if you're in jail for 15 years, you're going to romanticize what it's going to be like when you get out. And you're going to probably do that just so you can make it through the day. So, that's just my guess. That's just my take, my interpretation. That's just my perspective from, so I could see him doing that. So, he's having an argument with Shay, and, the kids come out and they're arguing with each other. And that's when he realizes that these are his, those are his kids. So he has this big smile, like his whole life got better because now he has a purpose. So, and that's probably the best thing that can happen to Trey. Shay doesn't really see that, and it's going to complicate her life because she's happily married. She has a career and she's raising her kids. She's moved on. But what she doesn't understand, at least not yet, is that Trey has changed. Yeah, he's still rough around the edges. He's not politically correct. He's the same. In some ways, he's the same guy who went in jail, but in other ways, he's not, because when he was in jail, Trey learned how to cook, and he believes that he has the makings of a gourmet chef. So the episode opens up with him cooking, and he's making what he called a dessert loaf, not a meatloaf, people, but a dessert loaf, and it looks really ugly, but it probably tasted really good. So once he gets off the phone with Shane, she's just like, hey, get a job. Let's just start with that. You see Trey in this suit that's too big for him, this like off white or beige suit that's too big for him. He goes to the most fancy restaurant in New York, and he tells the guy sitting at the bar on the outside of the bar that, they should hire him as the master chef. And he's like, we already have a master chef, and he's the owner of this restaurant. He goes, well, you need another one. He goes, well, you should hire me. I could, give it, give you guys a prison food style restaurant. So, of course, Trey doesn't realize that nobody really wants a prison food style restaurant, at least not yet. But, this is America and anything can happen. And, Trey's just like, look, I need a job. I'm a gourmet chef. I can do this. He goes, do you have a job for waiters? He goes, no, our wait staff is fine. How about, someone washing dishes? He goes, no, that's fine. Taking out the garbage. That's all fine. He goes, you want this. You want this. And the guy looks at fear like, what's he talking about? He goes, are you ready for it? Are you ready? And the guy looks in fear like, no, I'm not. He goes, are you ready? You ready? He goes, here you go. And he pulls out the dessert loaf out of this Ziploc bag, and he puts a piece in this gentleman's hand, and the gentleman tastes it. He makes him taste it, and the gentleman's like, oh, you could tell that the gentleman actually liked it. He thought it was going to be this horrendous thing to eat, and it looked bad. It looked like boo boo on a stick, but with a little M&Ms in it. But he ate it, and it was good. And he's like, that's my dessert loaf. He goes, this is good. He goes, but I can't hire you right now. I just don't, He goes, well, how about the job with the lowest respect of all? How about assistant manager? That's when you find out the guy sitting on the outside of the bar. He goes, I'm the assistant manager. And then Trey says, well, I have a complaint to make if that be the case then. He goes, I'm getting really bad service here. No respect at all. So, of course, Trey leaves because it's just not happening. Then there's this, what do you call it? I'm looking for montage, I guess, of Trey going to different places and getting turned down, and seeing the people. They're like, no, we don't hire ex-cons. And one guy just laughed and like, get out of here. So, it was, that happens. So then Trey walks outside of a restaurant that told him no, by the street curb, and a car drives by and splashes water all over his suit. So now he's all dirty and feeling down on his luck because he can't get a job. He walks into this coffee house, and the barista is just like, he walks up to her, he goes, okay, I use the bathroom. She goes, bathroom is only for paying customers. And he's like, well, come on, can't you cut me some slack? And he's like, no, you have to buy something. And then the key to the bathroom gets dropped off right next to the barista's register. Tracy looks at it, she looks at it, and he takes it, and he gets it, and he runs in the bathroom. And he's trying to wipe himself off and dry himself off, and she's banging on the door, and she's like, you can't be in here. You're not a paying customer. Next thing you know, Wavy, played by Malik Yoba, opens up the door, and he goes, my man, you can't be in here. And then he goes, what? He recognizes Trey. So for those of you who didn't know, Wavy was the guy that Trey was working for. Trey got caught by the cops with Wavy's drugs, and Trey went to jail for 15 years, and he never told anybody that they were Wavy's. He didn't snitch. So Wavy's like, hey, it's good to see you. They sit in Wavy's office. And why does Malik Yoba's character Wavy have on his shirt and tie, looking very professional, but with a gold charm chain that says Wavy that's going across his tie? I can't even make this up. I really can't. So they're in the office, and Wavy's like, hey, man, I got this coffee gig, man. It's great. He goes, man, it's legit. He goes, people, they pay for coffee, man. It's amazing. They pay for these little beans. It's all legit. It's all grind them up. There's no drugs or nothing. And he says, white folks, they got money, man. They'll pay $5 for coffee. And, Trey's like, really? Because, once again, Trey's been in jail for 15 years. So he has no idea about Starbucks and Pete's and all the various coffee houses and how, people in their morning commute to work will get the newspaper and go get a cup of coffee on their way or on their lunch break, So that's when it clicks. And, Wavy's like, hey, you took care of me. He goes, you didn't snitch. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for that. And he hires Trey to work for him. He goes, so we'll get you a job here. We're going to start, taking care of you. So now Trey has a job at the coffee house, a job he wasn't expecting. Of course, he wants to be a gourmet chef, but, you get the feeling that he's going to have to work his way up to that. And I get the feeling that he will be one eventually, and he's going to surprise people when it happens. This is just the first season, but so the adventure is worth tuning in for. So basically, the next scene is Trey goes to back to the halfway house that's he has to live in, and that's the halfway house is ran by Cedric the Entertainer. He's the parole officer, and he's playing cards with the other ex-cons, and his name is Mullins, and he's got these bad jokes that nobody's laughing at while they're playing cards, and he makes this joke against this one guy named Country, and he goes, why do they call you Country? And I forget what the joke was, but nobody laughed. It wasn't funny. And Country just looked at him and said, well, you can call me dumb if you want, but I'm going to take your money. And then Mullins, Cedric the Entertainer's character is just like, hey, we all agreed to put $10 in, and we're going to take $10 out when we leave. So no one's getting nobody's money. that's just, to my knowledge, not how you play poker. If you're going to play poker, you're going to play you either gain money or lose it, right? So, before Trey gets that job, he had came home to the halfway house. He was upset. And, he had the suit on and they were making fun of him. And Mullins's jokes were working then. And, Trey was like, I'm going to be a gourmet chef. Like, oh, really? He goes, you mean line cook? He's like, no. He goes, hey, can you give me some fries? And then Trey's like, ha ha, very funny. And everyone's actually laughing at this joke. So as he leaves the room, one of the ex-cons like, hey man, seriously, if you're going to go, can you pick me up some fries? So that scene was before Trey went to the coffee house. Trey goes to the coffee house. He gets the job with Wavy now. So now the next scene is him training. So we'll talk about that after this break.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
And we are back once again. Listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. It's Captain Keith. We're talking about the last OG with Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. So, as I said before, Trey gets a job at the coffee house working for Wavy, and now the barista that gave Trey a hard time in regards to using the bathroom is also Wavy's favorite employee because she can spot when the secret shoppers come in to the store. And Wavy says that he's kind of afraid of her and she's really intense. She is played by Edie Patterson. She plays Elizabeth. And she has to train Trey. So the first thing she has to do is show him how to clean the table when a customer leaves. So she's about to show him. And this lady comes up and this lady, she's the older lady, comes up to the table, and Edie's like, "Oh, we'll be right with you. I'm gonna have a new trainee, Trey, and we're gonna show him how to clean the table, so you can, we'll be right with you." So, and then Trey starts talking to the lady, and he starts flirting with her, and he's like, he goes, "Let me call the zoo." And she's like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you a cougar, girl. And he's like, "You gonna make me do some things." And of course, the lady starts giggling, and she likes the attention. So he goes, "You're going to get me in trouble here." And of course, Elizabeth is kind of mortified because she's like, you don't talk to our customers that way. That's inappropriate, sexual harassment. And Trey doesn't understand that because he's been in jail for 15 years and he's just, he's just being himself. And, so the cool thing about this show is, there's him being himself that when it works for him. And then there's being himself that when it doesn't work for him, and he has to figure that out throughout this comedy, throughout this series. So that's the fun part of the show. But yeah, watching him flirt with this lady and she just ate it all up. And then, Elizabeth is like, "You can't do that." So he's like, "Okay." So, and then the next scene is Trey's on the register and he starts to know everybody who comes in and he's talking to them and he's saying little things and jokes and, and then one couple comes in and, and he's joking with them. And somehow he talks about how he might sleep with the girlfriend if the boyfriend doesn't. And he says, I'm old school. So, I don't use a rubber and I won't pull out. So once again, Elizabeth hears him say this and she's mortified. And she's like, "Excuse me." And she's like, "You cannot talk to our customers that way." He goes, "You keep on doing this, I'm going to have to write you up." And he's just like, "What are you talking about?" And she starts yelling and the customers look. So then she gets quiet. She goes, you just get off the register, just go. So she gets on the register looking for people to help. And they're all kind of scared of her right now because she looks so intense. So then Wavy calls Trey into the office and then Wavy's like, "Hey man." Before that happens, Elizabeth spots the secret shopper. And she's trying to figure out what she's going to do. And Trey's like, "Don't worry, I got it." Trey goes over to her and he starts talking to her in his Trey way. And he's just like, hey, how you doing? He goes, why don't you come over here? We got some of the best, best stuff. She goes, and she tells him the order that she wants. He goes, oh, you want a Regularo? And he brings her over to the register. He goes, she'll help you. And then, of course, Elizabeth talks to her. So then Wavy calls him into the office like, hey, man, thank you. Good looking. You did a great job with that secret shopper. I'm glad you're here. He goes, you're doing good. He goes, but there's some stuff I might need for you to do for me. And Wavy's like, what? He goes, well, these coffee beans, maybe I might be grinding them a little too much and maybe not always giving them the best quality, but charging them for them. And Trey's looking at him like, what are you talking about, man? He goes, you in trouble? He goes, well, no, not really. All you got to do is just not say anything. You don't know anything about what I'm doing. Trey breathes a sigh real heavy. He goes, look, if this was 15 years ago, I might do it for you. He goes, but now I can't do that. He goes, I'm a father now, and I have to be someone worth respect for my kids to look up to. So I can't help you with that, man. So then Malik, looks at him, smiles, and says, hey, man, I got you. And he gives him a pound, shakes his hand. He goes, I was just testing you. But now we at home were wondering, well, yeah, you might have been testing them, but you really are doing what you said you're doing. But you just didn't think you thought the Trey was going to go for it, but you can see he has changed and he does want to live a good, decent life. And he doesn't want to go back to jail. Why would he? And, he wants to get to know his kids. They're his focus now, whether they know it or not. And then it's weird because, he calls Shay and he tells her, hey, I've got a job now. I'm a barista. And she goes, well, that's good. Well, first, she won't answer the phone, so then he calls on Shay's husband's phone. And he goes, how'd you get my number? He goes, oh, I saw it on LinkedIn. So it's cute because, now you see, Trey is starting to catch up with the time slowly but surely. Because when he first called Shay about, about her dodging his calls, he's like, hey, I got one of these smartphones. I feel like $6 million mail after I got it. It's got games on it and everything. He said, but then after I got it, I realized now I feel like $1 in there because I'm broke. So it's cool watching this character adjust to 2018. So yeah, Trey was like, nah, man, I can't help you with that. So Trey was, ready to just leave the job if that be the case. Cause he's like, I'm not going to, I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going to, do anything to risk my relationship with my children. So, that's basically how the episode ends is, he calls Shay, tells her, hey, I got a job. But first he's talking to her husband and, he's like, hey man, just put her on the phone. Josh, I believe, played by Ryan Gall. He goes, Josh, just put her on the phone. So she's talking to him and she walks away from the table. He goes, I want to see the kids. And the kids are like, who was that? And she's like, well, we're not ready for that right now. So what we're finding out is Shay is not ready to openly admit to the children that this is their father. But she can't keep them from him forever. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. So she's having a hard time realizing that, wow, maybe he really is going to stick around this time. But it's all about timing. But so it's going to be interesting to see how that relationship with his kids develops. And I have a feeling, too, about Trey and Elizabeth, played by Edie Patterson, the staunch and intense barista. It's going to be interesting to see if something romantically happens between the two of them or not. I'm just wondering because I kind of got that vibe. But so we'll see. But The Last OG is a great comedy. I enjoyed Tiffany Haddish. It's really funny. I like the premise. Single mom, did good, got married, successful entrepreneur and businesswoman, looking forward. Trey's a part of her past. And it's also kind of like she doesn't want people to know. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. Trey's rough around the edges. He has a good heart. He's funny. He really is talented as a chef. So we'll see if he can make something of himself with that. And we'll see what happens with him and the kids. But yeah, The Last OG. It's a TBS network TV series. Check it out. So I had to mention that to you. And I also wanted to talk some more about Krypton. Yes, like I said in the description, the Kryptonian Twist. So the season's almost over. There's like one more episode left, I believe. But I got to tell you, there was a nice twist that I did not see coming. Last time we spoke about Krypton, we left off with Adam Strange saving Sandra Oh's life from a bomb. A young girl was made into a bomb and she blew up, and that was kind of messed up and creepy. And Adam Strange got sent to another dimension or place, so we don't know where he's at. So the next episode picks up with basically Seg is in love with, Lyta Zod, of course. They're not supposed to be together, but, they love each other. And he's bound, or he's supposed to be married to Nyssa Vex. So, who is played by Wallace Day. And Lyta Zod is played by Georgina Campbell. And, of course, Cameron Cuff is Sandra Oh, Superman's grandfather. So now what's happening now is that Nyssa Vex is basically, she's lost her ranking. So she is, she's not as powerful as she once was. Some people actually want to put her in jail. And Seg has developed a friendship with her. So even though they were, promised to get married to each other and there was no love, there was always an attraction there that I think Seg was trying to ignore. And when Seg needed Nyssa to help him save Lyta's life, Lyta Zod's, and she made him admit to why. He goes, "Look, I love her." Nyssa didn't flinch. She helped him. So when Nyssa needed help, and of course Lyta's like, "Why are you helping her?" Lyta's kind of jealous, even though she's with Seg, she's a little jealous. Seg says, "Because when I needed help in saving you, I asked her and she didn't hesitate. That's why I'm saving her." So what could Lyta say to that? So basically he finds Nyssa and they all start working together with Black Zero. That's the resistance group. There is these rebels, but we found out that General Zod is leading that group, and he's Lyta Zod's son. We already spoke about that from the future. So up until now, we don't know what General Zod's name was. I had to look it up, but they also said it in this episode. Drew Zod. So Lyta didn't know what was going on with her mom and why her mom, because she didn't know that her mom was an outcast now, an outlaw for the attempted assassination attempt on the leader of Rao. So basically, Seg manages to reconnect. They find Jaina Zod, Lyta's mom, who's played by Anne Ogbomo. And this is, General Zod's grandmother. So Lyta asks her mom, "Why did you do this? Why did you try to kill, the leader of the Rao movement?" And she said, "Because Nyssa's father, Darren Vex, told me that if I pledged allegiance to him and helped him with his coup, that they would spare your life. And I don't regret that decision." So that, that moved Lyta, because Lyta, is not used to seeing her mom have any compassion at all. So the Zods are a very proud and noble family. They live to serve. They're very honorable, but they never seem to be that really open and warm-hearted. And we see that Lyta, the young Lyta Zod, is definitely a lot more open and warm-hearted than her mom. But we're starting to see that Jaina has it there. She's just had a wall up for so long. So Lyta's like, "Well, okay, thank you for telling me." And she's like, "I have someone you need to meet. I have something to tell you." So the next scene is Jaina Zod looking directly at General Zod's face, just staring at him. And she's looking at her grandson. And she's like, "Who's your father?" And he looks at his mom, Lyta, goes, "Are you sure you want me to say?" And I said, "Hey." He goes, "I don't know who my father was. I was told that he died in the war." And to be fair, General Zod did not know who his father was. So later on in this episode, when it's nighttime out, of course, Seg and Lyta get together and they're making love in a little tent. And, General Zod sees them kissing first before they do all that. So that's right. Okay, he's like, oh, okay. He wasn't aware that, Seg and Lyta had a relationship. So Doomsday has been hidden by these certain people in Kandor. Their job has been to guard his suspended animation chamber for, centuries or for years. So, but they know that Brainiac is still coming, and he wants Kandor and he wants Krypton. And here's what we know about General Zod. And we know about the Zods in general. Well, we know this about Jaina, his grandmother, and him. They're not afraid to make the hard choices. We'll talk some more about Krypton after this break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back once again, folks. You're listening to Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast. This is Captain Keith, and we're talking about the Kryptonian Twist. And yes, folks, it's coming up. The Kryptonian Twist. Yes. So Jaina Zod is starting to get to know her grandson, General Zod. And they're sitting and talking. They sit and they talk, and General Zod tells her, hey, look, this Kal-El, he's like, I don't like this guy. He's considered the last son of Krypton because Krypton exploded and his father, Jor-El, sent him off in a ship to Earth. Any Kryptonian who goes to Earth because of the yellow sun would have powers. He says, so there's nothing special about him. I said, it was just nothing but dumb luck. He just, he survived. So Jane looks at him and says, well, how did you survive? And he says, well, now mind you, General Zod is not lying to his grandmother. He's like, well, I was away. She goes, well, where were you? I was in a place called the Phantom Zone. It's a different dimension. I was in prison there. And she goes, why were you in prison? He goes, well, I tried to overthrow the government. He goes, looks like that runs in the family. And he says that, and my friend Jor-El is the one who put me there. But the Phantom Zone cracked, and that's how I got to Earth. So, Jaina's taking all this in. And he's like, there's nothing remarkable about Kal-El. Like I say, he's just, it's just dumb luck that he survived when he did. So, but he said that it was another L who put me in the Phantom Zone. So he didn't say Jor-El's name, but he said it was another L who put me in the Phantom Zone. So Jaina's eyes kind of perked up. So Jaina is assessing her grandson. So then she tells Seg and her daughter Lyta that, look, Zod, wants to rule, out of fear. But Zod didn't say that, but that's what she took from it. And the one thing that people don't realize, General Zod is a patriot. Yeah, he's got a little bit of an ego, he does. But this version of General Zod that we see played by Colin Solomon, I like him so far. Tall, bold guy. He's got these piercing eyes. You could tell that he's not afraid of anything. So General Zod believes, well, the only way we're going to stop Brainiac is to unleash Doomsday. But they're like, but no one can control Doomsday, and he kills Superman. He goes, I get that, but this is the hard choice we have to make. Jaina doesn't believe that. She tells Seg about, what Zod said, and Lyta. And Lyta basically sides with her son. So she likes her son. And why shouldn't she, right? So, but it's just weird though, that she sees her future son who's towering over everybody. He's like 6'5", 6'7". And she's like this short little lady. So basically, Alyta and General Zod go to open up the crypt or the chamber that has Doomsday in it. So now, when you see the seal on the floor, it has it's the mixture of the House of L's emblem and the House of Zod. So you see the S, but the Zod symbol is underneath it. So what we found out before is that it took Seg-El and General Zod to cut their hands and bleed on this symbol for it to open up. It took the blood of a L and a Zod in order to open up this chamber, which means that the L's and the Zods were the reason why this thing has been frozen and trapped in this chamber. So when Jaina realizes what they're going to do, she goes and she tells Seg and Jaina follow them. They try to get there before General Zod and his mom, Lyta, Seg's lover. So, now mind you, so Seg's got this girlfriend, Lyta, and he's got this future wife, Nessa. So he's in the middle. And let's say the ladies don't like each other, but they tolerate each other. So, it's, it's a trip. So basically what happens then is that, oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking. So what happens then is that General Zod and Lyta, they find the chamber. They go. No one's really blocking it. Seg and Jaina show up, and it's like, don't do this. It's like, there's got to be another way. He goes, well, if you got a better idea, let me know. But this is the only way we're going to stop Brainiac. And then Seg is like, well, you can't do it. You need a L and a Zod to do it. And then General Zod looks up at Seg and Jaina, and he says, it's true. I didn't know who my father was. That was the truth. But I do now. And he cuts his hand. So General Zod cuts his hand and it bleeds on the logo that is the House of L, and the Zod symbol and the House of Zod. And it opens up the door. And then Seg looks at him and he goes, it's got to be a Zod. He has to be of Zod and L blood. And he looks at General Zod and he says, you're my son. Kryptonian Twist, y'all. Kryptonian Twist. So in this new series, General Zod is the son of Seg-El and Lyta Zod. So that means he's Superman's uncle. He's an L and a Zod. So he can open that chamber by himself because he's both. And he found out who his father was. So that was surreal. Did not see that coming at all. So Lyta was surprised because she didn't know who the father was until that happened. So, and then Jaina was just like, wow, okay. So what's Adam Strange going to say when he finds out that General Zod is actually Superman's uncle? And what's Superman going to say when he finds out in the future? So, and then it explains now why Jor-El and General Zod were so close. They were brothers. We don't know if Jor-El already knew that. And we know Zod didn't know, but he knows now. So he opens the chamber and then it's empty. So they're like, what's going on? So you find out that it's been moved. So Seg goes to talk to the people who moved it, the people who've always had it. And he's like, we need to put it somewhere else. And they're like, we don't want this responsibility anymore. So we're going to move him and he's your responsibility. We want to live our lives. We no longer want to be in charge of guarding this alien, this doomsday person. So we're like, wow, okay. So yeah, it's getting deep. It's getting deep, y'all. So then General Zod basically looks at his grandmother and he says, "You want to be Primus again in Kandor?" And he says, "And so do I." He says, "So I'm invoking the right to challenge you for that position with no mercy. I, Drew Zod, challenge you." And he moves his arm to the right in front of his chest, his right arm. He makes it, like he's cutting something. And his grandmother says, "I accept your challenge. No mercy." So now Lyda gets to watch her mother fight her son. So grandson and grandmother are dueling to the death. So like I said, the Zods are very proud and noble family, and they're very loyal to Kandor and to Krypton, but there's some dysfunctionalism there that's just not healthy. I'm pretty sure grandmas and grandsons should not be dueling to the death over a government position. But, they're beating each other up, and Lyda's just looking like, WTF. Like, what is this? And, she might deserve to get an Emmy for her performance in this episode, because she really had that look like, what do I do? Is this really happening? Is my mother fighting my son? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you may not like your grandson, but he is your grandson. Is it really that deep? So, he gets in a few good punches on his grandmother, and then she, gets a few on him. And then eventually she gets him in a chokehold and she's about to kill him. And Lyda shoots her mom in the arm. And then General Zod's like, "What did you do? You just robbed me of my honor." You see how they think? I mean, he was willing to die by his grandmother, and he would have been okay with it. Well, of course he doesn't want to die, but he was upset that his mother saved his life. And she said, "You talked about earlier making the difficult decisions, and that was one I had to make." And then he couldn't be mad at his mom anymore because she did save his life. And they looked down to speak to his grandmother, her mother, and she's gone. She disappeared. So she runs off into the snowstorms. She's just out there because, she's upset with him. She's like, "Don't touch me. Don't look at me." She's upset with her daughter because her daughter chose her son over her. But I'm like, what'd you think your daughter was going to do? Why should she be okay with you killing her child? So Lyda and you find out that, like I said before, General Zod's first name is Drew Zod. So of the House of Zod. So Lyda and Drew, they go, they leave. They're still trying to figure out where Doomsday is because they realize they got to stop him. Seg-El winds up confronting the Brainiac emissary who's taking over the body of the guy from the House of Ra. And they're fighting. So Seg-El brings a bunch of troops with him to fight him and to assassinate him. And the Brainiac representative is just like, their minds are weak, and he convinces all those soldiers to shoot each other and kill each other. But that it doesn't work on Seg. Seg eventually gets the upper hand, and he winds up killing Brainiac, or so we think. Brainiac explodes or burns up, but then he reforms into his Brainiac face and body. And he's like, Krypton and Kandor, you're mine. So, they can't defeat him. So even when they defeat him, they don't. So it looks like they're going to have to open up Brainiac. And Seg-El is starting to realize that now because, like I said before, the people that were guarding Doomsday, they're like, "We don't want this responsibility anymore. We're going to move him to another location so you guys can deal with it. But we don't want it anymore. But because you saved my life," this one lady says him, "you can leave. If you try to come back, we will kill you. But because you saved my life, you can leave now." So Brainiac has been reincarnated again, this time as regular Brainiac with a human body. And his ship is on its way. And Jaina Zod was lost in the snowstorm, but she gets picked up. And we think it's by her brother, who failed to win the title of the House of Zod. But it looks like he's been living out on the outskirts of Kandor for years. So it seems like he's the one who's tending to his sister's wounds. So, but he saw her on the ground, picked her up, and took her. So we'll see in the new episode what happens. But I'm pretty sure that's her brother who found her. And Seg is upset with Lyda for siding with General Zod in regards to Doomsday. And he doesn't trust her anymore because of that. But he still has to deal with the fact that General Zod's his son. And he's getting closer to Nessa now, and they even kiss in this episode. So, and then Dev M gets found because Brainiac had taken over his body. Lyda had shot off his arm. They had to take Dev to the Fortress of Solitude, where Seg's grandfather Val-El could work on him and fix him, and he does. But of course, his arm is still missing. So Dev is still bound to Lyda, but how is all that going to work? Are Seg and Lyda over? Is Seg going to be with Nessa now? Nessa and Seg have a child in the birth chamber that hasn't been born yet. So it's really cool. The show's fascinating, but I love that twist that General Zod is actually an L as well, that he's Jor-El's half-brother, that he's Superman's uncle. So like I said, love to see how that's going to play out. Don't know where Adam Strange went to, but we know he saved Seg's life. So Seg will be happy to see him whenever he does come back. But now everything just got real and complicated. And now they're not going to have a choice, because if they don't unleash Doomsday, Brainiac's going to take and destroy Krypton before 200 years early. So this show is great. I'm enjoying it. But that's the most recent update. Looking forward to the last episode for this season. This show airs on Sci-Fi Network, Sci-Fi Channel, so check it out. It's a prequel, sequel, kind of. It's all in between. It's not just one thing, but it's definitely fascinating to watch. And after this break, we're going to get into Killing Eve.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back once again. You're listening to Golden State Media Concepts television podcast. And this is Captain Keith. And we just finished talking about the Kryptonian Twist with the television show, the new series Krypton on the Sci-Fi Network. And now it's time to talk about Killing Eve. So this is a new mystery series on BBC America, and it stars Sandra Oh, formerly of Grey's Anatomy. As I said before earlier in the podcast, she also appeared in the movie with Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, Sideways, the cult classic comedy movie about wine and wine tasting and relationships. She was great in that film too, actually. So, Killing Eve. This is a series based off of some books, the Villanelle books by Luke Jennings. So, and I gotta tell you, I'm kind of curious about these books now. So, Killing Eve is about Eve Pilastri. She plays a security operative who winds up hunting for an assassin. So, this is a security operative who has a fascination with murder and deaths. And basically, what happens with this show is it's a security officer. She was assigned to watch a witness who's going into witness protection who survived a hit. This young lady was the lover to this old prominent businessman who got killed by Villanelle. Villanelle is this beautiful young assassin, blonde-haired lady. She speaks like maybe 2 or 3 different languages. She gets an assignment and she carries it out. And here's the thing about, she's played by Julie Comer. And the casting for this was perfect because she has classic beauty features. She's a very pretty lady, but she's got this coldness to her face when you look at her and her eyes. So the acting is right on spot. You begin to find out that Villanelle is basically, well, she's, on my take on it, she's a psychopath and a sociopath. So, she likes killing people and she doesn't have any real feelings about what she does or guilt or remorse, but she likes to play and fake it like she does. So it's just really fascinating. Her handler is a man named Constantine, and you learn more about him as the series goes on. But so basically what happens with Eve, like I said, she's been a security officer for the British government or a security operative. And you find out that she was born in Great Britain, but they had moved to Connecticut later, and then she moved back. So she actually is a British citizen, although she was raised in America. So that's the story they're going with, which is fine. I like it. So, as I said before, Eve was supposed to check up on this witness, this young lady who witnessed her older boyfriend getting killed. She's in the hospital. She's a Polish girl, so she speaks Polish language. You find out that Eve's husband is a Polish man. So she convinces her husband and one of the people, he works with the youth, and he works with some people. He works with this young guy who's also Polish. So between the two of them, they go help Eve out so they can try to translate what this lady is saying in Polish, because Eve can't speak Polish, but her husband's fluent in it, and so is her husband's young friend. He's fluent in the Polish slang that this girl might be talking about. So she figures out that the assailant was not a man, but a woman, because basically Eve was told by her superior officer that the CTC cameras caught the man or a description of the man who killed this older gentleman. What you find out is that the Villanelle has been killing people for the past 2 years, taking out just different hits, contract hits. She's taking them, and she enjoys doing it. It's fun for her. So what happens? Eve goes to the hospital to check up on the witness. She goes in the bathroom for a second, and she sees Villanelle, but she doesn't know who Villanelle is. Villanelle is disguised as a nurse, and she's got blue scrubs on. And as she comes out of the stall, she looks at Eve, and Eve's messing with the hair. She doesn't know if she wants to put it up or keep it down. And Villanelle tells her, "Keep it down. You look good like that." So then Eve keeps her hair down, walks outside of the bathroom, goes to the hospital room to talk to the witness, and she sees a trail of dead bodies on the hospital floor, including the witness, dead. Police officers dead, nurses dead, everybody's dead. So of course Eve flips out. They call for help. Eve's boss, her immediate boss, named Bill, who's really cool. He's there with her. Bill Pargrave is his name. The real actor's name is David Haig. He's great, very cool on the show. He sits next to Eve and he tells her, "Don't worry, I'm here for you. You're brilliant. Just don't say too much." So Eve is sitting there in this observation room with Bill next to her supervisor. And then Frank comes in. Frank is both their boss. No one likes Frank. And they have a name for Frank. And Bill's like, "I've been wanting to call him a D-wad for a while. So just, if it gets to that point, that's what I'm going to do." So Frank is just like, you know what you've done here. You've ruined this investigation. 4 people are dead because of you. So, and Eve gets quiet and, and she's like, "I knew that you had the wrong person." He goes, "How do you know that?" "Because I had my husband, translate her language, and I asked her some questions, and she told me it was a woman who did it." So Frank is looking at her like, "You know what? You're fired. We have to try to figure out how to fix this mess. You're fired. And then Eve looks at Frank and she says, you know what? You're a D-wad. I'm censoring that, of course. And then Frank's like, oi. Bill's like, oi. He goes, that's what I was going to say. Why did you be? And then and she's just like, I'm out of here. And then Frank's, Bill is like, you're a good cop. You don't deserve this for the most part. He gets up to walk with, he goes, I've been wanting to call him that for a long time. He gets up to walk out, but before he leaves, Bill looks at Frank and says, just so we're clear. And Frank says, yes, you're fired too. So they both leave. And then later on, Eve gets a call from another agent, Fiona Shaw, who plays Carolyn Martins. Now, in this first episode, there was a meeting where Eve met everybody and Carolyn Martins was there, and they were talking about the murders that were going on. And, Eve got in there late and she was eating food and she just looked kind of awkward and out of place. But Miss Martins didn't say anything. She just listened. So once Eve gets fired by Frank, Eve and Bill, Carolyn Martins reaches out to Eve and she's like, let's talk. And she goes, how'd you know that this was a woman? And Eve just told her, hey, I just, I had that feeling. I just did some research and, the witness told me that, she told us that it was a woman, that it wasn't a man. So Carolyn takes Eve to her office and she's like, so I want you to think about working on that case, but you'd be working for me, and it would be it'd be official, unofficial. So she goes, of course we have to do a background check on you, and we're gonna clean out your computer and me and your desk, and then we'll meet for breakfast. So the next day, Eve meets Carolyn for breakfast, and they talk. And Carolyn Martins has Eve's folder. She goes, this is the file we got off your computer. And she opens it up, and it's all these pictures of dead bodies and women who got killed and stuff. And Eve is relieved. She's like, I thought it was some stuff that my husband did, So she was more concerned about her husband embarrassing her than the fact that she had files on murders, unsolved murders of women and men. And then Carolyn says to her, how did you know to do all this? And she's like, I've just been researching it. She said, this person's been doing this for 2 years. And she said that, they're really good at what they do. They're very intelligent. They're really good. And they're kind of showing off right about now. And Carolyn's like, I agree with you. She goes, I've been tracking this person for 2 years. She goes, I want you to come. He goes, come here. She goes, I want to show you something. So she takes her back to her office, Carolyn's office, which is kind of like an unofficial MI5, MI6, organization going on. And Carolyn points to her bulletin board. She goes, your folder, this is my wall, my version of your folder that you already have. She goes, you can come work for me. We'll pay you, but it's, it's an official, unofficial. And you can bring, and she said, you can bring 2 more people to be a part of your team. And this is Kenny. He's a computer guy. He can do anything with computers that you need. So, who's played by Sean Delaney, a very shy and awkward guy. So Eve was like, okay, you got it. I'll do it. I'll work for you. So Eve then brings in Bill, her old supervisor, played by David Haig. And she brings in her other coworker, Elena Felton, played by Kirby Howell Baptiste. And they start working the case with Eve to figure out, what's going on and who's this person killing people. So Eve has no idea yet that she met the killer in the bathroom. So now Constantine is getting information. This is Villanelle's handler. He's like, do you know that someone got fired from their job or left their job just to join a new position so they can come find you? Because now Villanelle's enjoying herself killing all these different people that she's hired to kill as an assassin, but she's getting a little bit sloppy. Like, for example, she what is she? What was the scene? Let me see if I can think of the scene where she. Oh, so she killed this elderly man who was a grandfather at a birthday party for him, and she was able to convince his grandson that bring him up to his bedroom. And when she came up to him, and she had this nice dress on that was actually his wife's dress, and he touched her, shoulder. Basically, the grandpa, who's happily married, the grandfather, is hitting on Villanelle. Beautiful woman in a dress in his bedroom. Okay, I get it. And she says, you really should ask before you start touching people. And she's right. And then she takes out a pin and she stabs him in the eye. Now, mind you, the grandson's hiding in the closet thinking he's playing hide and seek. So Constantine's upset because, that was a sloppy kill. It was supposed to look like suicide. It wasn't supposed to look like a hit. So Constantine alerts Villanelle, hey, there's someone looking for you now. They know, that someone's been left their own department to come look for you, to find you. You need to tone it down and slow it down. You need to come in for an evaluation. And of course, Villanelle doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to do the evaluation, and she's fighting against that. She's very carefree and very happy. She loves what she does. So there's so much more to talk to you about in regards to Killing Eve, and but I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much: the cat and mouse game begins, and lines get blurred. So, and we'll talk some more about Killing Eve next week. I'm running out of time, but thank you all for listening to Golden State Media Concepts television podcast. This is Captain Keith. Appreciate you all, you great, wonderful, beautiful people of the planet Earth and of the known universe. And until next time, I'll see you somewhere out in space.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.